Good evening. It is Saturday night. It is just gone 8 o'clock, and it's time for some Doctor Who. Well, sort of. This week we're not really doing Doctor Who, I suppose. I think we're doing The Master instead. And joining me as always is Chris. Say hello, Chris.
Hello, Chris.
There we go. Yeah, this week we're not really doing the Doctor. We're doing the Master. We're covering this from a different angle, and we were going to be doing the Green Death, but that's going to be put off till next week. Um, but actually, yeah, we're going to be talking about the Master. We've gone through the Roger Delgado run as it is, and we are now firmly into the wild areas of the Master up until I think his next return is the Deadly Assassin. Um, so that's obviously the Peter Pratt Master, and then followed that then by Jeffrey Beavers, and then Anthony Ainley, Eric Roberts, Derek Jacobi, John Sim, Michelle Gomez, and Sasha Dewan. Um, which is it's quite shocking actually when you think about it overall, because um, if you look at the actual Masters lifespan, we're missing quite a few Masters. We're missing quite a bit, in fact. When you actually look at it, um, there's how many missing? Would you say? Well, there's a whole lifespan, so there's at least 12 masters missing. And we've got we have to consider to be the survivors of after his lifespan. Um, we're going to be talking about all that, plus what we would like the master to do in the future. There are a couple of things I want to clear up though. Last week we were speculating as to when Roger Delgado passed away in terms of the production. I can actually tell you it was after the Green Death. It was literally after Katie Manning had finished her filming for the Green Death. That's when Roger Delgado passed away. I found that information out. So I know we were speculating about that last week, but actually it turns out that um, he had passed away after she'd already left the show. Um, another thing to talk about as well, and for some reason I've dropped a bit rate. I've just absolutely just dropped through the floor, and I don't know why. Um, but another thing to talk about is the fact that since we are doing the Pertwee era as well, I think it's also fitting to talk about uh, other things that have happened this week to do with John Pertwee, and that would be the passing of one Una Stubbs.
Yes.
Um, I think it's an important one for us to cover. I think Una has been. I think she's been in both our lives for our entirety. Um, I think both of us would remember her as Aunt Sally in Wurzel Gummidge.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
an amazing, absolutely amazing um, career, fantastic career on and off stage, on and off screen. She was influential in her business. I've never heard anybody say anything bad about Una Stubbs. I've never, it's never come up. Anybody's ever worked with her, I've always said that she was absolutely amazing, and she was a fabulous person to work with. Um, yeah, nothing but love from everybody. And I had a special tribute from for her from Cliff Richard as well, who'd worked a lot on the Cliff Richard show and on movies like Summer Holiday. Um, but it hadn't stopped throughout. It just hadn't stopped throughout, with people paying tribute to her that had worked with her on Give Us a Clue, on it's what was the Till Death Was Part, um, on obviously Sherlock as well, which is a big one as well. And it's not often somebody like Una Stubbs reaches the level of fame that they do that late in life as well. To actually be, I mean, to us, Chris, she was always famous. She was always on the screen. She was always on TV.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, she was. I mean, my mum's a big Cliff Richard
Mhm.
fan, so I knew her from the film Summer Holiday. But for me personally, she's always Aunt
Yeah.
Sally, and as you say, give us a clue opposite Lionel Blair.
Yes. And again, then, but for, I mean, to us, she was always on screen. Internationally, though, for her to become as massive, and in part, it has to be handed to the show Sherlock for that success. But it never it seemed to me that it ever went to her. She always knew, she always had her 2 feet on the ground. She'd grinded her way to the top of the profession. She'd absolutely earned the respect of her peers and her fans. And she was 84, so she'd had good innings. Let's be honest. But it's still a hard thing to hear. And I just want to say, thanks for the memories. Thanks for entertaining us, and rest in peace, Una Stubbs.
Yeah, I can only echo that sentiment, mate.
Yeah, it's a terrible loss, but you know, life goes on, and we've still got all the things to that she's done to remember her by, and that's a wonderful wonderful thing that not many people get a legacy like that to leave behind. So it is sad, but it's also we've got something that we can cherish as well. Um, so yes, this week, yeah, we were going to be doing the Green Death, but we are in fact going to be doing the Master instead. And we've covered Roger Delgado recently with the run that we've had with John Pertwee. This is going to be a bit of an interesting conversation, Chris, because, as I said, we don't really know where in the mix Roger Delgado is as the Master. I mean, people often assume that he's the first, but actually, he's the first time we see the Master. But we don't actually know which number of Master he is.
Well, I've always assumed that he was the last incarnation of the first life cycle, because after Roger Delgado,
Mm-hmm.
that's when we get the more zombified ones, and then obviously you get into Keeper of Traken, and he borrows Nissa's dad a little bit, doesn't he?
Yeah, yes, he does. Look, Chris has just joined us saying, "Evening, lads. 2 minutes late. Don't worry about it." Yeah, the Master is. I mean, the Delgado Master, to me, he can come from anywhere. He's come from anywhere in any part of the timeline. We don't know. For all we know, Sasha Dewan regenerates into him. It's very nebulous. I kind of like that in a way, but there's also a point whereby I kind of think I wish they would nail this down a little bit. Um, what are your thoughts on it? Would you like him to have a little bit more clarity on the Master itself, or would you prefer that he stays just as much a mystery as the Doctor?
um, yeah, I'd prefer him to stay a mystery, not knowing, like you say, as hard as it would be to believe him regenerating from Sasha Dewan into Roger Delgado. Yeah, that is a good point. It would be more interesting, I think, leaving it as it is rather than start like this is the first master, this is the
Yeah,
second master. I mean, we've got a little bit of parity between the two sort of undead rotting masters going into Anthony Ainley. So obviously they're in that little
yeah,
bit's in a kind of order, and yeah, and possibly Eric Roberts as well, straight after Anthony Ainley. But apart from that little like quartet in the
yeah,
middle, we haven't got a single clue where any of
yeah.
the others
It's
are.
it's it's not. We can't really say anything about where they are in the timeline because we just don't know. We know Anthony Ainley is after, and we know Eric Roberts is after, and we know Derek Jacobi and John Sim are after. Because they were regenerated after the Time War, right? Or during the Time War, they should say. Derek Jacobi was.
Yeah.
Um, out of curiosity, I'm just wondering what you think of the premise, though. That given how Big Finish is actually kind of leading the way in the Doctor Who universe right now, um, they've obviously done 2 books now based upon the Master. The first one was dealing, I think it was dealing with Anthony Ainley's Master, and the second one is actually dealing with Eric Roberts. I haven't listened to either of them. I'm ashamed to say, because I've been told that they are good. But my question would be, given how much production trouble they're having with making Doctor Who right now, and obviously the bits of production that they managed to scrape out. I know, look, it's a pandemic and people have had problems and all that, but they've done it before whereby they've ended up delaying episodes or shows of Doctor Who because of scheduling issues and things like that. So my question to you is, would you like to see instead a Master series?
Oh, that would be interesting. I mean, it'd be unfortunate that a few of the favourites have passed
Mhm.
away, but yeah, done properly, maybe through animation or
There's
whatever.
always deep fake.
There's always deep fake as well. Don't even say that, because a mate of mine, a man in his 50s, the other day in one of our groups put a deep fake of his face on Pamela Anderson at the beginning of Baywatch. It wasn't pleasant. I never want to see it again.
Yeah, but
But yeah, there's always deep
yeah,
fakes.
but I mean, the idea of having a series that focuses more on the Master and makes the Master the center of the storytelling as opposed to the Doctor. I'm wondering whether or not that might be something a bit more interesting and something a bit more informative, and because we don't really have that much to go on with the Master in terms of broad appeal. So, and they always tend to focus on one or two things. But if anything, I've learned from watching Roger Delgado as the Master is the fact that there's a character here with multiple facets. That there's a character here that actually has just as much personality as the Doctor. It's just the fact that this person goes in the other direction. Um, I'm just wondering whether or not you would think of that as something that you think that might be of interest.
I would be interested, but it would come down to the writing
Hmm.
and who they cast. And I think to make a show about the Master, it would have to be post Watershed. It doesn't need like sex or swearing or anything like that in it, but it needs to be so dark to fit with how cold and unforgiving the Master is. I mean, we've seen that with Roger
Yeah.
Delgado. He will do that. Master will do anything to try and reach his end goal, no matter who gets in the way. Um, so they definitely have to nail that on to make it work, because it'd be no point having a show about the Master where at the end of every episode they go, ha, 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 ha. Today, kids, we learned that, because
Yeah.
that wouldn't
Yeah,
work.
no, definitely not. And I think actually when we've been talking about Doctor Who as well in terms of who might be taking over as the showrunner and stuff like that. And it's been mentioned before. But if you were going to do a Master series, that's where you would want Charlie Brooker to at least write some of the episodes.
Yeah.
That's where you would want him to really sort of go. We use some money, here's some money. Please give us a story. And I think it would be far more interesting to see, because there are places, because it's not Doctor Who and it would be more about the Master. As you said, you'd want it darker. You want it, if anything, you want it cruel, in some places. Um, but I think there's a lot more material to explore there as well, and it doesn't. I think you've got a bit more freer reign to explore the Master than you have the Doctor, because I think that any time that they've tried to explore the Doctor, it's ended up in pretty disastrous results. I'm fairly confident to say. Um, the other thing I want to address as well when we're talking about the Master's character as well is the fact that I we know that the Master can be deceptive, and we know the Master can be manipulative. Um, but I think I've gotten into arguments before with people about this, but I think I actually trust the Master more than I trust the Doctor. Um,
Well, you kind of know where you stand with the Master, don't you?
yeah, it's not only that. I think the Master doesn't lie as much. I just think that the master is an evil, manipulative so and so, but I don't think the master lies. I think there are always small lies here or there, but I think the Doctor lies all the time. Whereas
Yeah, I mean the Masters lies are normally, as we've seen with the Pertwee run, his costumes like pretending to be a professor of this or a teacher of that. That's his lies are normally disguises.
yes, again it's manipulation. He might leave out facts, but I don't think he bends them. I don't think he sort of outright. I mean, there are a couple of occasions where I can point to, like Eric Roberts, trying to convince Lee that the Doctor was actually had stolen the Master's bodies and things like that, and remaining regenerations, so there is that. But for the most part, I would say that the Master definitely doesn't lie as much as the Doctor. I don't. From my perspective, anyway, I don't see him as a liar. And I think that's one of the things that I think makes the Master a good villain. In fact, is the fact that the nice one is the one that tells the lies, but it's the villain that tells the truth. And I think that's quite a nice balance. In fact, okay, the Doctor's lying, but sometimes the Doctor's lying to protect people's feelings, or to try to save somebody, or to try to where Christopher Eccleston sent Rose into the TARDIS and said, "Look, you have to hold that button down," and she goes in and he sends the TARDIS away. Or the time where he tells Amy, that he left his sonic screwdriver in his jacket. Can you go get it? And he's got it in his pocket all along. Those sorts of things. But the Master never would do that. In fact, the Master would probably take delight in being cruel to somebody and going, I'm this is going to hurt you, and tough.
Yeah, and also you smell and you're ugly
Yeah.
too. I mean that's what you want from the Master.
Yeah, but I mean the Master would likes to take delight in stuff like that, though. I think, it's a strong, intelligent character, and it's a character that I feel. Again, there's a lot more to explore, but I think we've also been lucky as well with the actors that have portrayed the Master. Um, for the most part.
Yeah, I was going to say for the most part.
I don't know if I can really blame the actors that are even the lesser the lesser respected actors either, because I mean they can only go by the material that they're given.
True, that's true. I mean, I don't like it when people hate on Michelle Gomez. I know I've made some tongue-in-cheek comments on streams we've done, but I still think that was a miscast with the writing.
Yeah.
Because the way they wrote Missy would have been a perfect fit for a new version of the Rani.
Yes.
Rather than they didn't really write her like the Master. She was a bit too kooky. I remember sitting watching that, and before I twigged what Missy meant and that, I remember saying to my missus, like, "Oh, I wonder if this is the Rani, like Kate O'Mara's character, because she's coming across that way."
So
when it was revealed as the Master, I was almost disappointed. I was like, "Oh, I thought I got that right."
One of the things one of the theories I had come up with as to who Missy was, because if you remember, they were kind of stringing out who Missy was up until the thing. And my go-to suggestion, which I still think is a cracking one, was the part whereby she I think it was in Deep Breath. I think which was the first time we see her, and the android gets killed or dies, and we don't know whether or not he was pushed or jumped. We don't know, but ends up on the spire, and he ends up in this sort of park in Cardiff, which they claim to be heaven. And then Missy's there, and she says to him, "Oh, did my boyfriend hurt you?" And it was like the fact that she was calling the Doctor her boyfriend, and it just made me think. My idea for who Missy was actually going to be an incarnation of Death, and it was like that would be really cool. That Death would see the Doctor as a boyfriend, and this just manifestation of Death would and to have that end up becoming a companion as well would have been like, this is bonkers. And of course, it didn't pan out that way. But yeah, when we didn't know who Missy was, it was again, she didn't really have anything defining her as the Master. Um,
No, she was like an absolutely mental Mary
yeah,
Poppins, weren't she? She had the umbrella
but
as well.
that's it. That's why, and she was dressed in black as well. So to me, it was like this real new incarnation of death that we'd never seen before, and she was dealing with souls and things like that as well. So I was like, this is perfect. This is brilliant. And then yeah, it didn't pan out that way, and they turned out, oh no, it was the Master as a woman. Um, Not that there's anything wrong with that, because I still love Missy as a character. I'm just not entirely there with her as the Master. I can't, like, if you take the femaleness away, I don't see that as Roger Delgado. Um, if you see what I mean? Like, if you
Yeah.
put lipstick on Roger Delgado, you don't end up with Missy. Um, and the same thing with Anthony Ainley. Jesus, imagine that with lipstick. Oh, um, yeah. I mean, and again, the people like Sacha Dhawan, Derek Jacobi though. Oh my word, the reveal of Derek Jacobi as the Master was absolutely magic.
Yeah, that was brilliant, and it totally you didn't see it coming
Ah,
either.
and his delivery as well of that was just with the whole thing of him having that electric lead. It's just draping as he picks it up, and it's just like oh yeah. Question from Lucosa says, question might be a bit off topic, but with many modern Who fans saying how great it is that the Master and the Doctor regenerated into a woman, how well received do you think male incarnation of the Rani would be? Um, I mean, so here's an interesting one. There is a fan theory out there that the Rani is already back in Doctor Who, right? And has been in it for a while. There is a character in the Sarah Jane Adventures called Rani, and she was a young girl at the time. I think she's like 34, 35 now. But she was actually working with Sarah Jane, and this fan theory is that she hid from the Time War and ended up on Earth, and the character of Rani in Sarah Jane is actually a chameleon arched version of the Rani. Um, that she's just lost her TARDIS or something, and she's actually trapped on Earth. So that's quite interesting. Um,
Yeah, that's quite interesting. To answer his question, though, I don't think it would be well received if you brought a Mal Rani in the current television climate. I don't. I think there would
if
be
you did,
complaints.
it would have to be one of the box tickers. Like it'd have to be a transgender, uh, one that they can tokenize, because that's the only way the BBC would do it. Is that it would have to be you'd have to make the make hire the actor that was a trans black gay just all it would be, and not for good reasons either. Like I have no problems in casting a person like that into the role, provided that the person that is being cast into the role has the acting credentials. That's purely. I don't have anything against that sort of thing at all. I'm not trying to present a transphobic attitude or anything like that. It's purely that you want to make sure that the person that's being cast is being cast for the right reasons. And
Yeah, because they're good, not because they
well,
are.
I mean, like, I don't know if you've seen the Netflix has just done a new trailer for the new He-Man series, which they're making, and they have gender swapped Ram Man into a woman, so it's now Ram Man, literally, and they have also racially swapped Teela. Now she's now black. So
Oh, is this the new one for like 4 to 10 year
it's
olds or
the
whatever?
new one, the new one that they've just put on Netflix now. Yeah, the new trailer. Yeah, is literally in between having Revelation Part 1 and Revelation Part 2, they've now just dropped the trailer for a brand new He-Man series, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. And that's what they've done. They've literally, so in the current climate of how they manage things, would it be acceptable to gender swap the Rani? It does depend on the story, mind. I'll have to caveat that, because imagine that they did do it, and again, you already had a person that was the Rani. It's a bit difficult because really the Rani does translate as queen.
Yeah.
So, unless it was Freddie Mercury,
Don't go there, Garwin. Don't go there. It's not worth it.
it really does depend. It genuinely does. I don't think it would be acceptable though. It does seem to be a one-way traffic. When it comes to how you race swap or how you gender swap somebody. I mean, it's just the climate that we're living in right now. I don't want to drag that out anymore as a discussion, but I think that you can. I think if somebody was to say to you, a man is playing the part of the Rani, I don't think you need to go any further than that before you can actually suspect exactly what the BBC would do with that. I think you know yourself that if they were to do that, they would have certain stipulations in place to make sure that this version of the Rani was appealing to as many demographics as they could. Because I think that's how it goes these days. I think they're more interested in ticking a box that applies to a demographic than they are about caring about how they cast somebody or how great credentials somebody has in acting credibility. That's the way it is, really. I don't really think that we can add any more to that, really. I say couldn't agree more with your answers. Oh, thank you very much. This has been an issue throughout, and I know I believe Lucosa, you said that, or Chris said something about doing a topic on Star Wars at some point. And I'm all for it because they've done exactly the same sort of thing there. It's nothing new. They've literally wrecked house on many a property. The Hollywood years. So yeah, I have no problems in talking about that either, because I think that it's we're living in a time now whereby people seem to have forgotten what has gone before and seem to think that they've invented the world. That's the best way to put it, I think. The current generation believes they've invented the world, and so anything before that, they simply just are completely oblivious to. And I think that they don't really understand the things that they've lost in the process by not. I think we grew up. People of our generation, I think, grew up at a time whereby we grew up in an environment. I think we grew up in an environment whereby we grew up where there was 4 channels, and a lot of what was on BBC Two at the time were black and white movies and black and white films and old TV shows, and we grew up. Even though we grew up in a time whereby things were revolutionarily changed, we were also growing up in a time whereby we'd also had access to the previous media. And I think everything is only focused now on current and next. And I don't think there's a historical look back at what's already been produced. And I think that's a big difference. You know, I still look at the Johnny Weissmuller Tarzan films, the Gordon Scott stuff. I'm a massive Buster Keaton fan. You know, Buster Keaton. We're looking at some of his films now have just turned 100, and some of his films are just absolutely priceless. And it's a joy for me to sit down with my son and actually go, look, you need to study this because this is good shit. You know, this is.
Well, I mean, I did a video with Luke Ozer and another guy where we done our top 10 films, and within my top 10 films was both The Maltese Falcon and Laurel and Hardy's Way Out West in my top 10 all-time favourite films. So,
I mean, like if I'm going to put some of my top 10s up there, I'd have to talk of Forbidden Planet. Holy crap! That movie literally changed the effects business. Like literally, people that credit Star Wars. Go back 20 years before that, pal. 25 years before that. And take a good hard look at Forbidden Planet. Um, what else is there? Oh man, there's so many stuff that I could genuinely put into my top 10. Some really kooky stuff, some really far out stuff.
I'll tell you what, it weren't
Yeah.
easy. Just rounding it down to 10.
Not forgetting the original King Kong. You know, see, now I agree to a certain degree with the original King Kong. I think the original King Kong was more flourished. I think it was more well known. But I'm going to go back further. I'm going to go 5 years earlier than 6 years earlier than King Kong, and go to Fritz Lang's Metropolis, because I love Metropolis. I think Metropolis is a pinnacle movie, regardless of the effects in that film that gave rise to. It was the granddaddy of effects movies. The story. I mean, if you look at the parallel in the storytelling, I'd be willing to bet you, if we didn't have the movie Metropolis, we would not have the '89 Batman movie, because it's the same story. And it's the same finish. You know, the exact same finish. Rotwang at the end of that movie is at the top of the cathedral with Maria, and the hero comes in trying to save him. There's the fight on the top, and it ends with Rotwang being falling off the top of the cathedral. It's so many parallels in it. Um, yeah, it's just that's one of my favorite, and it's a brilliant watch. If you get the opportunity, watch there's like four different cuts, I think, of Metropolis. If you can try to watch the extended. I think it's like, it's about 2.5 hours long, I think. If you get to watch that, oh yeah, and I think there's a colorized version out there as well. So get to watch that. That's something else, because there's one whereby they've done a cut of Metropolis with a modern musical score as well, and that's amazing. It's like a big rock anthem. It's bloody amazing. It is. It's really well done. But getting back to the topic that we were talking about, um, we don't really spend that much time talking about the other masters, but I think it's worth us remembering that. I know, they were obviously, Jeffrey Beavers and Peter Pratt were probably playing the same master, as far as we can tell.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, one looked a bit less ping pong eyeball than the other one, but
yeah.
yeah.
Again, if you took the eyeballs, if you took the makeup off, the eyeballs off him, and just left it like that, he'd have better makeup than the Jeffrey Beavers master. Really, I think. I like the look of it. I think the Jeffrey Beavers one doesn't look as good as the Peter Pratt one. But we only get really sort of two outings with those, which is the Deadly Assassin and Keeper of Traken. Um, and in both occasions, it's the Master trying to survive. Um, this is, yeah. Don't have a single bad thing to say about Metropolis. Yeah, it's a wonderful film. Um, so yeah, it's the Master trying to survive, and of course, when we get to um, Anthony Ainley, then when Anthony Ainley takes over, things change, because we lose. It goes into John Nathan Turner era, and I would say, out of anything else, the John Nathan Turner era does feel like the era that aims at a younger audience. I think that throughout the 70s, where we had the Pertwee Doctor and the Tom Baker Doctor, I think they were starting to deal with more adult audience. Whereas I think when it got to John Nathan Turner's era, I think he wanted to aim it back at kids again. And
One thing I will say about that era though, Anthony Ainley did look the part for
oh
me.
man, look, this stuff that he does, and even though, like, I mean, he plays the part for 10 years, right? He plays the part from 79 to 89, right? Um, or is it 81? 81 to 89, something like that. It's somewhere around that era. Um, I mean, it depends on whether or not you go by filming dates or broadcast dates, really, I suppose. But I mean, and he even done the game as well. Do you remember the game, the board game?
Yeah,
So he done.
I don't have it, but I remember
Well,
it.
it was kind of, we used to have that all the time. It was like there were several different versions of the game. I'm trying to think. What was it called? Oh,
Didn't he do some voices in the early PC game as well?
possibly. I mean, I think he died in 96. I think it was, or something like that. Let's have a look. Yeah, when was it? Oh, it could have been later. Anthony Ainley. Oh, 2004. That's when he passed away. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I'm trying to think of what the hell the games were. Yeah, do you remember you used to get a videotape of them, and you play the board game, and you put the videotape in, so it would run concurrently with the board game. So you had a particular amount
Yeah,
of
it
time.
was. I know the first one was Atmosphere
Atmosphere.
because I worked at Spears Games when they were making it.
Man, that game was awesome. That game was absolutely fantastic. Um, yeah, Destiny of the Doctor's PC game. Possibly, yeah,
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 that's the one I was referring to. I'm sure Anthony Ainley done some voiceovers
yeah.
in that.
But they also done it again. They done a board game like Atmosphere, but a Doctor Who version, and Anthony Ainley was the master in that. I'm sure you can go on YouTube and find the videos of it as well. But I think that yeah, the, there are episodes whereby when he shows up as the master, it's far less, like, particularly with survival. Survival is it doesn't get enough respect. I think. I know it's only a 3-part episode, and I know it's really more people look at the giant cat heads that people have to wear, and the fun fur that they wear in, but the master in that is actually dealing with the fact that he's crumbling. He's been taken over, and the interesting twist with that is the fact that the master's always hypnotizing people, and in survival he's really sort of been hypnotized. So it's kind of like a twist on the character itself, and it's more like he's been possessed. Actually, he's actually been taken over. Um, and he's starting to lose control.
Before we get too far away from talking about it, I just looked up that PC game. It came out in 1997. It was written by Terrence Dicks, the story of the game, and the cast was John Pertwee via Archive Audio, Tom Baker, Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, Anthony Ainley, and Nicholas Courtney. And David Coker, I don't know who he is, but he voiced the first and second Doctors. So that really had a bit of everything in it.
Yeah,
So there you
yeah,
go.
that's.
I have got it somewhere on a disc.
I mean, we've never done the video games. I mean, you run video games, Chris. So maybe that's one for you to look up.
Yeah, maybe I will.
We could do a Doctor Who video game crossover. Yeah, I mean, with the Master, he's definitely a character that I find survival difficult to watch. It's not easy to follow, not as much as something like Warriors Gate, but I find it's a bit convoluted. I think with survival is following in the Curse of Fenric, and really the Curse of Fenric is the story of about Ace going from being a child to being a woman. And I think the follow up to that is the fact that she's sort of finding her own instincts in life, and the Doctor is very much a story about how you want to be seen when how you want to present yourself. Like anybody can be a thug, be a brute, be in life can just become this unlikable thing. But it's a balancing act of how aggressive you are to other people, and it's a hunter prey type of story. The weird thing I find with the survival actually is that they're all turning into cat people, and yet they howl. That's that's a bit weird. Yeah, there's a and you're like that, but you're cats. You don't make that noise. Yeah, you always get that famous scene with Sylvester McCoy with the if we fight like animals, we'll die like animals. Um, and that's really sort of what the episode's about more than anything else. That they get pulled to the other planet that's changing them, and that's where the master is. The master has got trapped on that planet somehow. Oh, ah, yes. So the master actually loses his TARDIS because the master gets pulled there. The cats on the planet behave like weeping angels, except instead of transporting them through time, they transport them through space, and that's how you get trapped on the planet. Um, and the cats can only return to the planet of origin. Um, of their origin, they can teleport to different planets, but it's only the planet's of origin. Um, So yeah, no, I think Survival is a bit underrated, particularly with Anthony Amy's performance in it because he's really good. He is really good as the final performance for the Master in Classic Who. It's a very good performance. He sells the whole um, cold bastard act very well, and him playing off opposite Sylvester McCoy. It's weird when you think about it. It's the only time Anthony Amy works with Sylvester McCoy. We get the Master throughout the 80s, but it's the only version that we see with the Seventh Doctor. Um, question: the bacteria, spider, manure, bacteria, carpet feces. What?
What?
I don't know.
Okay.
I can't make head nor tail of that. I don't know what that is. If you can clarify that, I'll try to understand that. Um, but yeah, and then obviously we move on to obviously Eric Roberts, Master. Um, what do you think of this whole idea of this Master was obviously murdered by the Daleks? The plot itself is insane anyway. The fact that the Daleks are putting the Master on trial is ridiculous to me anyway. I can't ever imagine a Dalek trial. Um, I mean, what are they going to accuse him of? Githood?
Yeah. Abandoning them before the beginning of Planet of the Daleks.
I mean, it's weird to think like what exactly would you? How do you see a Dalek court? Like a trial? What the hell does a Dalek trial look like? You're not Dalek. Exterminate.
Yeah, that's literally it. They're worse than Judge Dredd for taking the law into their own hands.
Like it would just be literally just going in and blowing somebody away. I mean, resurrection of the Daleks. The first thing that they do is the Dalek firstly teleports in the warehouse, and literally it teleports in the warehouse. It sees soldiers standing in front of it. It's just like exterminate and starts shooting. It just starts gunning them down. I'm not sure why they would actually have a trial for the Master. Like,
No, me either.
so that's one thing to get out of the way. But let's assume
Well,
that happens.
to answer your question, what I thought about it. Well, firstly, was it ever really explained how the Master ended up as a slime snake? Because that's quite weird upon itself. I mean, once you get that out of the way, I did like the fact that Eric Roberts still had the cat-like eyes, and even though the people that made that had never really watched Doctor Who, they knew enough that the Master had ended up with cat eyes, basically, due to the events of Survival. I think Eric Roberts was the victim of a lunatic script. I don't think Eric Roberts was that bad. I think he was basically told or shown some of Anthony Ainley. He was probably shown the episode with the Master and the Rani and said, "Yeah, you're playing that one." So he's pantomimed it up a bit.
I genuinely don't think Eric Roberts ever saw anything of Doctor Who. I genuinely don't think that they did. I think that the way they cast the film, I think they would, because I don't, if I remember rightly, the original casting for the movie was going to be Michael Jackson for the Doctor. This is how far out of whack they were going to be with the film, and I think that it was going to be something ludicrous that they wanted for the Master anyway. No, because it's my understanding that they didn't actually want the Master; they wanted the Daleks instead, and they couldn't get the Daleks, so they just went for the Master. Um, so when it comes to that, I think that they really didn't have anybody specific in mind. I think what they kind of lucked into getting Eric Roberts, because as much as people rag on his performance, man, it could have been so much worse. Like so much worse. Like Eric Roberts will do what he's told when he makes a film, and he's good. He can hit his mark and say his line and make it convincing. Um, there are camp stuff in the film, but if you don't know what you're making, you're kind of shooting for the moon. Um,
Yeah,
so really, you're actually relying more on the director and the producers than you are on the script at that point, because the script will say something. But the thing about reading a script is that the script will say man stands at top of stairs in glorious outfit, and that's what that might say. But those stairs might be 40 feet tall, they might be 4 feet tall. You don't know. And the outfit that you might be wearing might say glorious, but glorious could mean a magnificent outfit, a magnificent three-piece suit, or it could mean giant cape with collar. And I mean, it's how it's interpreted. There's so many different things rely on the actual interpretation of the script via the director and the producer, that really, when it comes to the actors' performances, you can only all hope that they actually deliver it with sincerity. And I think that this is why I'm really, really curious. I wish I'd done it before this, but I'm really curious as to how the Eric Roberts Master Big Finish audio is received, because I wonder. I wonder if we have a rating for it, actually. Let's have a quick look, shall we? Um, Eric Roberts Master Big Finish. Let's look. Yeah, see what it says.
I'm sure I've heard somewhere that it's supposed to be really good.
I'm just having a quick check just to see what. Big Finish, Big Finish. Eric Roberts returns to the Master March 2021, so it's out already. It's on CD for £19.99. You can also download it. I mean, it looks. Oh my word, Chase Masterson's in it as well. Nice. It's a bit of a weird cast in there, but yeah, I'm okay with that. Having Chase Masterson in anything, I'm happy with. Yeah, I mean, I think he was kind of given a rough deal as well as the Master. It was only the one off. I mean, as much as Paul McGann was robbed of the Doctor, he was robbed of the Master as well. So it was kind of a it wasn't just a one-way street. That it affected both of them. I mean, the thing with Eric Roberts is the fact that he was acting in anything and everything that he could get his hands on. So he's kind of a bit more spread around. He had a bit more employment, I think, and wasn't so reliant on it actually going to series. Of course, that is the direction it was going. Was the fact that they were hoping that it was going to go to series. But yeah, we don't really get that much of him. He's a bit camp, but then again, so's the film. The film is that very much 1990s TV movie where not having enough of a budget didn't stop them from trying to make stories that they had to keep cutting stuff out of. Because that's the inherent flaw in that film, is the fact that they get some really big ideas but just can't execute them. They just can't do it. There's a bits whereby he's kind of like the Terminator. There's bits where he's kind of this weird, um, just this weird bloody alien performance, and then there's bits then where he's by this over the top, just over the top evil villain. So it's he's spread all around the block. The only thing that really does bug me about that film more than anything else is the fact that we don't really get a really good out for Sam. He doesn't have the. He just steps out of the TARDIS and gets shot. So it's like could have done something better than that.
Yeah.
But so really, I don't know if you've got any more to add to Eric Roberts as the Master. I mean, what do you think they could have done to change that, or what do you think they should have done with his Master? I mean, a lot of people have problems with him being an American, which I personally don't have a problem with, because I actually like Eric Roberts as an actor. But what do you think they could have done with his Master to have changed it up a little bit?
I think the best thing they could have done with his Master was sit him down for 2 or 3 hours and show him the best bits of Roger Delgado and Anthony Ainley, because they were the only 2 Masters we'd seen, full-bodied Masters we'd seen so far. If they'd have sat him down and said, look, this is the character you're playing, explained about regeneration, it's not that difficult, and actually showed him the gravitas of the character he was playing, it might have given him more of an idea for his performance, because, as you say, he was hitting his marks and presumably just doing what the director was telling him to do. And, to all intents and purposes, he done that really well.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a moment in it where I do actually feel there's one little bit. It's not. It doesn't happen often, but there's a moment in the movie where I actually, when Eric Roberts is the Master and he's just taken over Bruce's body. I feel like there's that one moment whereby I know he's going directly for evil, but there's this moment of almost cruelty, whereby she's like, "Oh, you coming back to bed?" And he's like, I am not Bruce. And she's like, oh, call me Master. And she's like, okay. And then he goes and strangles her. And as he's strangling her, you strangles her off frame, out of frame, and he's just like, as he's strangling her, and it's just like, oh, that's cold and cruel. That's I can see that. I don't know what LPC is on about.
I think the best thing you can do that is right click and remove from channel, to be honest with you.
it just appears to be babble. Yes. But anyway, I think that's Eric Roberts. I would like to see or rather, I would like to hear the Master audio to see what that's like. But then we have to move on, obviously, to Derek Jacobi, who again only gets one out in.
He has got a big Finnish audio drama though, the War
And it's
Master,
supposed to be brilliant.
the Master of Callus.
It is supposed to be brilliant.
Yeah.
I think it's like 4 or 5 parts. So I think that that is something that's worth looking into. I think. Hang on a sec. I have no idea how to go about blocking someone.
3 dots, right click, or click on the 3 dots at the the right hand side of their comment, and it's there.
I can't see it. It just says hide user.
Oh, okay.
Remove. Report pin. I don't see that.
Hide user would probably work.
Yeah, we can do that. If necessary. There we are. But anyway. Every time I see Derek Jacobi performance, I wish he'd stayed on as the Master. I mean, yeah. I mean, Dr. Yana was a really good character. It's just the fact that that Derek Jacobi's acting in that as well it was just a great performance. It was just a really good, solid. There was a tragedy about the character. there was a tragedy about the fact that he couldn't remember his past and he couldn't just. There was almost a sorrow to the guy, and he he had a touch of what's the word? He was sullen, and but he was it was like he would get teared up thinking about his past. It was like as if he almost knew that he didn't want to know, because there was a lot of horror there. There was a lot of he was a troubled soul, and I think that was a really great performance in Derek Jacobi. Um,
Far too short though.
yeah, and again, this is why I would like to see a sort of a master TV show. Is it actually grown down to Derek Jacobi's performance, in the fact that you could have this master that that really was thinking, because they try to play it up a little bit with Missy, whereby they locked her in the vault and try to make her sort of admit her past. I don't know how that works. I've got to be honest with you. I don't know how that's supposed to work. I think there was a kind of a different approach that they could have gone there, but I'm grateful for the scenes that we got together with Missy and 12, because I think that combination was done really, really well. I particularly like the whole bit in World Enough and Time and the Doctor Falls, that scene together that they have, and that whole bit whereby the Doctor's giving the whole speech of I do what I do because it's right, and it's not easy, but I do what I do because it's kind, and John Sims like flogs it off, but Missy's kind of a bit more receptive to it, and I think that there's a tortured soul again about Missy as well, and I think that's what you'd have to tap into with the Master, for me.
Yeah.
Whereas, again, we get such a short space of time with Derek Jacobi, which is a shame, but we then move on to John Sim.
Right, well, before we move on to John Sim, the only thing I wasn't keen on with the Derek Jacobi thing was the fact that he was called Professor Yana after he'd been told by the face of Bo, "You are not alone." It just seemed a bit contrived, the way they
yeah,
done
but
that.
I don't know whether or not that was just. I think they were just trying to suggest that was coincidence. I don't think that they were trying to actually say that he had called himself Yana as "You Are Not Alone." I think that was just coincidence, that he just happened to have the name Yana. So that's one of those things I can take or leave. That it's not really a massive issue.
Well, I can normally. It's just because we're talking about it, and I've just thought of
Yeah.
it.
No. I get that. I think, like, because they used to love playing with that anyway. So and that was Russell T Davis as well with that. And he loved putting those things in. That's where you end up with Mr. Saxon, which is obviously Master Number 6. But yeah, he would love those sorts of things. Whereas, yeah, I can take or leave Yana. It doesn't bother me. That really, I can happily just go. That's just coincidence. The Doctor just putting that together in his own head. But after he realizes there's another Time Lord that survived, and who's the other Time Lord that's likely to survive? I mean, there's potential for others. I mean, somebody put this theory out there as well, that the bloody meddling monk was the Master as well, and I was like, nope, don't like that, at all.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because the thing I was looking at earlier on the TARDIS wiki thing, says here, regardless of the Master's identity, upon leaving Gallifrey, at some point in their early life, the Master regenerated for the first time. His new incarnation found himself at the Scoundrels Club during the Great Fire of London, becoming a member of the club, blah, blah, blah. And then according to this, the sixth incarnation, um, this is according to the Celestial Intervention Agency's research.
Mm.
His sixth incarnation had yet to take on the name of the Master. He was a short, clean-shaven man, quite different from how the Master had looked on Gallifrey. And he decided to begin experimenting with temporal nexuses in the hope of manipulating them to take control of all history. And calling himself a monk. The Master's first experiment had him aiming atomic bazookas at the Viking ships of Harold Hardrada.
Yes.
So, yeah, a lot of it is fan
Yes, that's
fiction,
total
but
fan fiction. I don't accept that. The meddling monkey. The meddling monk was not intelligent enough to be the master. For me, the also being the idea of the master being the meddling monk. No, just say no. Yeah, I mean the monk is more of we call him the meddling monk because he that's it. He meddles. There's no super intelligence there. You know, it is personal gain, but it's really sort of it's more materialistic with the monk. Whereas with the master is more like lavish, big picture. Like the master wouldn't care about the history of a country. It would be more to do with the history of a galaxy. If
well, it does say at the end of that piece, it says, however, other accounts of the Doctor's early life treated the monk as a different childhood associated Doctors, previously known as Mortimus. According to these accounts, no known connection ever existed between the monk and the Master's respective incarnations.
So, I've just thought of this. The monk couldn't possibly be the Master. If I mean, that's not to say he couldn't possibly be. I should iterate that. I don't think that the monk is the Master because in the story, The Meddling Monk, he says that he is from the Doctor's future. So that's and the monk's TARDIS is actually a more advanced TARDIS than the Doctor's as well. So, but in the Meddling Monk, the monk does say he's from the Doctor's own future. So, and given that the Master and the Doctor are supposed to have grown up together, I don't think that's exactly. Like I said, we're dealing with characters that are time travelers, so it's not. I don't want to reject it out of hand because of that, because they are time travelers, so it doesn't matter. You can be from a different time and still be what's the term? You can still be familiar with people from that time. Then you can still be associated with them, but it's just the fact that in the episode The Meddling Monk, he's definitely, this is the first time the Doctor meets the monk, and he is from the Doctor's own future on Gallifrey. So, which is one which I don't know how they're going to explain that now, because apparently Timeless Children has buggered that up as well. Well, it is cocked up a lot, actually.
Yeah, that's why I choose to ignore it. I'll just see what Lucosa's put.
Yeah,
and let's be honest, Peter Butterworth doesn't exude menace. I mean, could you imagine that if it really was Peter Butterworth was the Master? I'm gonna shrink you down. That'll be a pound, please.
I mean, it'd be odd because at the end of the episode, his TARDIS gets shrunk down, so that would be a bit of a bit of a odd coincidence. But again, I would bring back the monk anyway. Have him be really pissed because the Doctor's trapped him on Earth for 1,000 years. That would be a story that they could do. There's lots of loose threads that they could tie up. Particularly with the monk as well. Because why would the Doctor leave the monk on Earth? This is a time traveling bloody Time Lord. Well, why would you leave him on Earth? I find it to be an odd loose end. But then again, William Hartnell's Doctor was less about championing and more about just prevention, I think. That's a one. But again, I would have Tyler Butterworth come back to be the monk. Should be about the right age as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it we definitely covered the Derek Jacobi one. Now, the John Sim and the Mr. Saxon plot line, was it really a master plot? I mean, the whole thing with the Toglafane, whereby he's going to destroy the Earth and to rule over it and to rule over the species with this weird bloody paradox machine.
Well, the basically stripping people down and putting them inside Terrorhawks, for want of a better word. That probably would be a cold-hearted master plot. The whole thing, I don't know. I mean, a lot of that's overshadowed by me with the stupid praying for the Doctor bit at the end. So, I haven't gone back and watched that in a long time because it's every time I watch.
I do think
every time I watch that, I see Picard doing that.
Yeah, I do think that they did introduce a new idea with the Master, which is something I can draw back on later because it's something I want to get to when we talk about Sacha Dhawan. But in terms of how John Sim worked as the Master, particularly after his return, because at the end of that episode, obviously he gets shot and dies and refuses to regenerate. I really, up until then, didn't realise it was an option, which seemed a bit odd. Given how hell bent the Master was on survival, I find it a bit strange that he chose not to regenerate. I don't feel that was very Masterish.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't at all. The Master would literally do anything to stay alive. We've seen that.
Desperation.
Yeah, we've seen that from Peter Pratt, the other one, can't remember his name,
Jeffrey
and Anthony Ainley. You know, that's it. Would literally do anything not to die.
I mean, it calls into question then all the stuff with the Keeper of Track and onwards, and survival and everything that goes before.
And Eric Roberts trying to steal the rest of the Doctor's regenerations. So I mean,
it's not a very Masterish move. So in terms of how John Sim was as the Master, though, in his performance of it, do you think that they were obviously trying to make it concurrent with David Tennant and to be a reflection of the David Tennant Doctor? Do you think they were successful in that, or was he too flamboyant?
I don't know about flamboyant. He was bonkers, weren't he? He was an absolute fruit loop.
And
unhinged is the word I'm thinking of.
Yeah, he was kind of crazy, just crazy Master, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think John Sim, although I know it's something that annoyed you with the reveal, but I think John Sim played his version of the Master better in the episodes he was in. You know, the Doctor Falls, when he was when he was in with Missy and Peter Capaldi. I think that was his best version of the Master.
Not only that, but he actually wore a disguise. They had the whole rip-off mask callback. That was such a good Master move. That was such a good move, and it did. You're right. The trailers for that absolutely pissed me off, because it should have been kept bolted shut. Either they should have. They could have done two things. They could have either done it so that the Master's coming back and put it in the trailer, but they should have put another episode with the Master in, and then not told anybody about the finale. In much the same way, when they done Star Trek 2, Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
So when they done Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, they did it got found out that Spock was going to die in the film. And so what they did was they actually filmed the bit that's at the start with the training with Savek. That was actually the last thing that they filmed, because people found out that Spock was going to die in the movie. They actually filmed the extra bit with the training sequence where Spock dies in the training sequence and put it at the start of the film to actually make people think, okay, he's died there, but he was faking it. So this was the whole thing of, oh, isn't really gonna die. This was just him in the training sequence. That's what got found out. That's what got leaked. And of course, at the end of the film, then when he dies, people are like, ah, crap, you know. But that's how I would have handled it. I would have just done an extra bit with an extra episode, and put him in earlier on in the series, just so that, oh, the Master's back, but there we go. And then when it gets to Mr. Razor at the end of the series, then I would have been like, oh, bloody hell. Oh, yes. Yeah, but the fact that they put him in the trailer was just like, oh my god.
See, I was fortunate. I didn't see any trailers for that, so I didn't see
But
that
so
coming.
many-
So for me, it was superb.
Yeah, but I mean, it should have been superb for everyone, shouldn't it? I mean, it was, again, not to make another Star Trek reference, but it's kind of like when they done the trailer for Star Trek 3, and everybody was trying to keep the fact that the Enterprise was going to blow up a secret, and and when they saw the first trailer, it was right there on the bloody screen. It was like, ah, come on. But I mean, John Sim, yeah, you're right. His performance in World Enough in Time and The Doctor Falls is really good. It's really good, and they keep linking him to the bloody Cybermen. That's my only problem. They keep linking the Master to the Cybermen all the time, and it's kind of been going on since the Fifth Doctor, really, or the Five Doctors. But they keep doing it. They keep having these plots whereby it's all about the Cybermen with the Master, and I wish they wouldn't. I wish that they could move on from that, because I think that the Master, it kind of shallows the Master out a little bit. I think that I'd rather see the Master try something else instead. So I don't know if you have any more to add to that, but I mean, considering we are talking about World Enough in Time and the Doctor Falls there, I think it's a good note to move on to Michelle Gomez. Unless you want any more to add to John Sim.
All I was going to say when we're talking about that is he pretty much orchestrated the conversion of Bill into a Cyberman, and that was a very master thing to do.
Yeah, the fact that he oh, that's right. So I'm a bit on the fence with that one, because yes, he did, but she was also already dead, because she'd already been shot.
Yeah, but he knows about the Doctor's history with the Cybermen. To turn one of his companions full Cyberman, all right, she did have the big box on her to keep her alive, because she had a massive hole in her torso. That was one thing, having to live with that. But then to fully finish the job off, that's proper dark.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's still good. I'm not gonna deny it's not going to step too. It's going to step too far, but yeah, the whole thing with Bill was the fact that she was already dead anyway. I think it was just going to be an extra. It was pushing the knife in and giving it a twist. So that's something that obviously is very Master as well. Moving on to Michelle Gomez, we got several stories with her as Missy, going forward from Deep Breath onwards, where it was this slow reveal of her as the Master, where she finally shows up herself as the Master again with the Cybermen.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. As the mistress.
Yeah, as the mistress, Missy. She does this weird. I mean, I've always loved Michelle Gomez anyway. Even back when she was doing Green Wing, her performance in Green Wing is absolutely bonkers. And I don't know if you've ever seen Green Wing.
Is that the one with Tamsin Greig in
Yes.
it? Yeah, I've seen it. It's a long while ago when it was probably the first time it was on.
She plays an absolute pervert of a character. She's just absolutely perverted, and her character in that. I mean, if you think Missy's bonkers, you got no idea. She's absolutely amazing. I think she's brilliant. And I thought she was really good in Sabrina as well. Actually, the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I thought she was really good in that, because she basically tries to play the Queen of Hell, and she's very Missy in it, but there's a bit more two, because she plays two characters. She plays the school teacher, and the demon as well, and they're two different people, but it's one's very righteous and the other one's again is the Queen of Hell, and she's very good in that. She displays real acting range in that, and she's very good. Plays opposite. Oh God, what's his name?
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Oh hell! But yeah, I mean, she's absolutely brilliant. But and her performance as Missy, I think she. I mean, it's very much in the same vein of other things that she's already done. But I think that it just plays to her strengths more than anything else. I don't think that in as much as the Fourth Doctor plays to Tom Baker's strengths, I think Missy plays to Michelle Gomez's strengths. Whether or not that's true to the Master is another question.
There's one thing Michelle Gomez does well that I really liked in her stint as the Master, is she really does mental wild eyes really well. She's able to widen her eyes and put this insanity in the performance that I thought was superb. Was her Master written particularly well as the Master? Not really. She wasn't. She was fairly cold in the stuff with the Cybermen in when they was in the tanks and been slowly revealed with the skeletons and the whole sort of like turning people into Cybermen and taking their sort of spirits into the sort of like a Matrix type thing. That was very Master, but then she sort of went a bit too kooky the other way. But she always had this craziness in her eyes that I liked, and I've got no problem with them doing that. But I still think she'd have been better as the Rani. That's just my opinion.
I'm just curious because like with her performance, like she definitely delivers top class performance as Missy.
Oh yeah.
There's no question about that. I think she's absolutely whatever the Master's character is, she's nailed that character. Whether or not that's absolutely correct. I mean, I think it was a good reveal of her being the Master. I thought that was a very good reveal because I don't think anybody sort of like saw it coming. But it was just the fact that her goals seemed more about. She seemed more about tit for tat than really anything domineering. I don't think that her Master had any sort of big aspirations. I can't think of one. I know she was.
No, she kind of took the. I suppose in a way, sometimes Anthony Ainley's Master did have a bit of trying to get a one-upsmanship on the Doctor, so there was definitely that going on.
I tell you what I do. I tell you what I do like about Michelle Gomez's Master. Right. They did actually acknowledge the fact that she had now turned into a woman, right? And as part of that, they did the whole it's my boyfriend type of deal. But the thing I actually did like above anything else was that there was this empathy that even though she would kill people outright. I mean, she killed Osgood just outright, just like zap, you're dead, don't care anymore. And she tried to kill Kate Stewart by throwing her out of a plane. So there was all that cold-hearted stuff to her. She literally was the Master that saw human beings as a lesser life form and treated them as such. But the thing that I liked about her character was the moments that she brought to her, particularly in the scenes whereby she just turns around and says, I just want my friend back. That's all I want. And it was just like, okay, don't do that to me. That sort of moment is hard to come by. That's a hard sell for the Master to just be like, I just want my friend back. And the thing that she does in like Death in Heaven is purely, it's not for her. this is why it's a difficult master plot to get your head around, is because the fact that she creates the cyber army not for her but for him. She literally says, you know, this is your birthday present. This is what I'm giving you, which is an army to go bring what you need to bring to the universe so we can be friends again. And it's just like, that's a lovely take, but I'm not sure it's a master story.
Yeah, I do wonder if somewhere, I mean, I'm probably just overthinking it, but somewhere deep down, that's a nod back to Roger Delgado and John Pertwee as the friends they were.
Oh, absolutely. I can believe that. I can absolutely totally believe Stephen Moffat wrote that deliberately that way, so because they'd always been friends. They'd always been, you know, and even that story whereby, you know, in that plot, she's like, you know, Clara says, well, were you always trying to kill him? It's like, you don't understand how Time Lord friendship works. You know, it's not it's not as simple as a human relationship. It's far more complex than that. And I mean, that does fill me with a bit more intrigue and into her character, and it does actually leave me wanting a bit more from her as the master, to know a bit more, which is good. But I'm still trying to wonder whether or not, and maybe you're right, maybe it is more of the John Pertwee Delgado thing, whereby they're trying to just not just capitalize on that relationship between John Pertwee and Delgado, but actually go back a bit further and try to make the connection a bit deeper as well. But I mean, it was a moment that I did like. It was a moment that I absolutely loved with her version of the Master. I'm still puzzled about the. I mean, maybe it's just the fact that they were like, "Oh yeah, you've created this cyber army out of dead humans, and you thought I'd like it because you still don't get it." You know, that is a funny thing. It's dark. It's really dark.
Yeah.
But
I'll tell you what, that would have been a really, really interesting thing to explore, like you're saying, like the lost
yes.
friendship. Unfortunately, then they changed head writers.
Yes. And I think obviously as well, because here's the thing as well, we get to the end of The Doctor Falls, and the last act between the Master and Missy is they both shoot each other in the back. Or stab each other in the back. It whichever way you want to look at it. She stabs him. He shoots her. What do you think of that for the ending?
It's a very master thing to do.
I mean, they both laugh at it as well, because it's like, this is how we go out. We go out by stabbing each other in the back. I mean, is that the end for the Master for you? Is that how you would have envisioned the end of the Master? Not that you would have written such a thing, but if that's
it's a clever way of doing it. I mean, it is the way it was performed and the way that was written. It was a very master way of doing it. But then we don't see if Missy then regenerates, because we still haven't really had it explained to us if the Master's got a new regen cycle or not, the same way the Doctor did. So who knows?
I mean, we don't know actually where Missy came from, really, because Missy just shows up. So again,
I mean, they allude in the Doctor Falls. They allude to Missy being after, or Gomez being after Sim.
They do. Yeah, actually, they do actually say
they allude to that. But
she is definitely is, because they have that scene with the dematerialization circuit, and she says, "I remember to keep a spare because I remember some lady scared the crap out of me when I was you," and it was her. So he is definitely before her. So that's the one we can actually nail down.
Well, was it directly?
We don't know that.
That's
but
the
we
thing.
Do know,
See, we don't know. We can't nail. We can blue tack it, not nail it.
Hot melt glue at best. So yeah, that's all the Masters. Okay, all right, okay. Let's move on to the Jack
So
Nicholson master.
the only reason Michelle Gomez and Sasha Dewan are missing off of the picture behind
Hmm.
me is because they weren't in this picture, and I thought this looked really good for a
Yeah,
background. It's got no because I do like Michelle Gomez, so if I was going to leave one off because I didn't like it, that she wouldn't have been the one because I do like
yeah.
her.
Yeah. So yeah, we got to move on to Sasha Dewan. Who I think is a great actor. I loved Sasha Dewan in Iron Fist. I
He showed so much promise as the
Yeah,
Master in the first episode. It was revealed.
yeah, and it was such a good and again we had talked about this before in previous videos, but it was one of the things that I had wished that they had done, and it's something that I had uh, mentioned before when we both talked about this with what we would do with Doctor Who following series 11. And one of the things that we said was we would bring back the Master because you don't want to wait too long. You want to surprise everybody and hit them fast and hard. And it turns out, yeah, that's exactly what they did. I mean, I think they were course correcting for Series 12. And I think you can feel a course correction in Series 12. But then when they bring in Sasha Dewan, there's not enough in the way of mental aptitude, of planning, of actually being. Um, he's very isolated by himself. He's very much alone. I don't think he has the presence to carry it. Um,
Well, his first scene when he reveals that he is actually the
mhm.
Master, because when he's on that plane and he just shrinks people down willy nilly,
Yeah,
with cold heartedly. And I remember we spoke about that after that finished, and we was like, they've only gone and done what we were talking about, and we were so like up for it, and then well, we know what happened after that.
wait a sec. Question: Going back to earlier masters, in your opinion, is Peter Pratt, Jeffrey Beaver's master a regeneration of Delgado's, or are they one and the same? Yeah, I think that. Oh no, they've got to be one and the same. I would say that's what they are. I think Delgado just disintegrated and became Peter Pratt. I think that he couldn't regenerate, and so he just decayed. I think that's what the story is there. I don't think I can't see them being another. I can't imagine him regenerating into that. Um, what's your
Yeah, no,
opinion on that?
I think they're I think they're the same. Basically the same master. All right, the makeup changed slightly in between, but I think that's pretty much what it is. It's the same
Hmm.
master, run out of regenerations, clinging onto life by a thread, and then has found a way then in Keeper of Traken to take
Yeah,
over Nissa's dad,
yeah.
the king.
I feel as well because obviously there is a master missing here because we don't know. I don't know anyway who the master was who played or the person who played the master in the Doctor Who movie, but they did have somebody to play the master. Even though they were only on screen as a bit of a silhouette. Um, but yeah, no, there was another master there. Yeah, so but that it's implied that was Anthony Ainley's master, even though it wasn't Anthony Ainley in the part. Um, so yeah, we're going back to Sasha Dewan now. What is this guy's goal? What is it? I mean, genuinely speaking, we said. I mean, I remember us having the conversation of what we would do with the next series, and if we were going to bring back the Master, but we were going to make him, we'd like to make him a killer and dangerous again. And I do remember us having the conversation of, oh, he should blow up a planet. He should definitely, genocide should be something on his thing. And then we get the Timeless Children, and he's only gone and killed Gallifrey. Uh,
With the Cyberman again.
oh my god. Yeah, yeah. Gallifrey falls no more. Bullshit. Um,
That's the thing. Yet again, regardless of what we might think of that
yeah,
story, again, they've tied the Master into the
I know,
Cybermen.
I know, and they keep doing it. They keep doing it. and I don't like. I mean, what is his goal? What is the Master's goal? Because to me, if you look at the principal characteristics of the Master, it's to dominate the universe and to live forever. Those seem to be the governing fundamental principal values that, at least the surface ones, that the Master presents. And I don't understand what Sacha Dhawan's Master is doing. Like, they've called him the Master, but that's really not enough. And I mean, I'm sure I pointed this out to you before. They've dressed him like Jack Nicholson's Joker. He's got the same purple jacket, he's got the same check plaid trousers, he's got the same sort of bright green shirt and cravat, and it's just like, what have you done? This guy belongs in Delta and the Bannerman.
He doesn't seem to have much of an agenda, does he? I mean, it was. Let's look at the last story. You got the bit at the beginning in Spyfall where he's on the plane. Then we don't see him for a bit, and then he shows up at the end, and he's in Nazi Germany, and then he's all over the place, and then he goes to Gallifrey with the Cybermen, and converts all the dead Time Lords into Cybermen, but they're going to do what he tells them because he's got the I don't know, what is it, the cyber sperm in his hand, and it's just I don't know. I can't answer your question.
And we don't know how he destroyed Gallifrey either. Given that this planet had survived the Time War against the Daleks, who, to all intents and purposes, they were 50-50, as far as we can tell, throughout the Time War. The last few days of the Time War were Gallifrey was destroyed, but so was the Daleks. And then in this version, then he just wipes out Gallifrey. He just does it, just like I wanted to kill him, and so I did. But there's no. That doesn't take intelligence to write that. So I to me, the fact that he destroys Gallifrey doesn't reach a goal for the Master. I don't really see that as an advancement.
The other problem I have with it, and I'm not going to blame Sacha Dhawan at all, because he's only going with the scripts he's been given. I mean, I don't think he's a bad actor by any stretch.
No, absolutely not.
Is he starts off in Spyfall as a cold-hearted, calculated, and ruthless killer, and by the end of the Timeless Children, he's literally a grinning, gurning, laughing nutcase. They've basically turned him from someone that could be cold and imposing like Roger Delgado, and they've kind of turned him into the John Saxon.
Well, it's worse than that, because he becomes feeble.
Yeah, he's feeble and mad.
Yeah, and that it doesn't work for me. It worked in Spyfall, but it didn't work later on because he literally became feeble, and then they kept removing excuses as to why this person couldn't be. I mean, it was. This person was disarmed, having a conversation with somebody who was standing right there, going, "Well, you're a genocidal maniac." Well, if you were standing in a room with a genocidal maniac and they were standing right there, chances are you're going to chin them. I mean, you wouldn't just go, "Oh, you're a genocidal maniac. You must be stopped, and therefore I'm going to stand here and point my finger at you." I mean, that's just not how things work. That's just not how heroes work. If a hero did that, they're not a hero. I mean,
there was a lot of trouble writing with that. I mean, the Doctor would not use someone's race against them. And if you watch that episode where the Doctor's basically where he's got the Nazi uniform on, the Doctor, I can't remember the exact lines, but basically says, "I'm going to drop your disguise, and these people are going to see you for what you really are." And if you drop the disguise and see that Master as he is, you see someone of Asian descent. So is that the Doctor wouldn't do that either? That whole story all the way through was.
The Doctor has done things like that before.
Struggling
though.
for words.
I mean, the Doctor has done things previously. More
Not in this day and age,
no,
though.
but I mean, we're talking about classic era stuff, really, early stuff, whereby the Doctor's done stuff that you can honestly call into question. Um, the problem is that you're dealing with the issue as to whether or not the Master posed any threat anyway. You know, I mean, we told that the Master poses a threat, and we told that the Master is dangerous, but the big difference, and this is what I was trying to say with Sasha Dewan's Master. But compared to Delgado would kill people outright. It didn't matter. In much the same way that Dewan did in Spyfall. But the Master was just as dangerous without the tissue compression unit as with it. I mean, you've only got to look at like Terror of the Autons, where the Master just literally run up the staircase and just chucks the guy over the banister, just chucks him over the top. And you're like, oh Jesus Christ! Like, he was just trying to, just because he was in his way. Whereas Sacha Dhawan couldn't do that if he wanted to. He's too feeble. And I don't mean Sacha Dhawan. I mean Sacha Dhawan's Master. Let's qualify that. But and that's the way he is. And there's no. I find it to be questionable on his character as well, because I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure that it's a story big enough for the Master. That's my issue, is that it's not big enough for the Master.
I think the other thing with the latest incarnation of the Master is I've got no problem with them casting someone of a smaller stature to play opposite Jodie Whittaker so they can eye to eye. The problem I've got with it is they haven't written him up with enough intelligence to be able to counteract the fact that he's smaller.
This shouty, yelly, screamy, laughy, tantrumy kind of version, but he's kind of pathetic. And I mean, Delgado wasn't a towering inferno of a man. He wasn't as tall as Pertwee. I think he was about 4 or 5 inches shorter than Pertwee. But you still believed his malice and menace.
Yes, because he was written with that cold intelligence.
Yeah, and the thing with Dewan is the fact that I genuinely, it's part of the thing whereby, if you start shouting and screaming and raving, you've lost the argument. And I think what Delgado in particular brought to the table was the fact that actually you can be evil and still win the argument and still win outright, which Dewan doesn't feel like. Again, there's a touch of being pathetic about it, and I know that people have brought this up, and we've got to address this as well. People have brought up the fact that it's entirely possible that the Master has been lying to the Doctor about the Timeless Children, about the Timeless Child, and it's actually the Master that is the Timeless Child. This is a stupid idea. Make it go away. Stop suggesting it. I don't know who these people are that keep bringing this up, that it would be far better that the Master be the Timeless Child than the Doctor. But no, it wouldn't. And it's very, very simple, and here's why. If the Master was the Timeless Child, you've just totally buggered up everything from Deadly Assassin onwards. Because here's a creature that can infinitely regenerate, and now you've got Delgado's Master that can't regenerate, and you've got the Deadly Assassin where he's trying to seek out new life. You've got Jeffrey Beaver's Master doing exactly the same thing. There's no need for him to steal a body if he's got infinite regenerations. There's no need for Keeper of Traken. There's no need for Survival. There's no need for Anthony Ainley's Master. There's no need for the Doctor Who movie with Eric Roberts, because why would he need to turn into a slimy cobra and take over Bruce's body? Because he wouldn't have to, because he would just be able to regenerate. The whole John Sim plot would go out the bloody window. People who keep suggesting that the Timeless Child is the Master really should watch Doctor Who.
I think the only thing they should do with the Master and the Timeless Child is it was all a big ruse, and he was mucking about to wind up the Doctor. That's about as far as I want to go with that one,
Um,
because it was rubbish.
I did. So I mean, I don't. I have no. I think with the Timeless Child, I think you'd have to go Rassilon. I think you'd have to go start off with the first Time Lord and be call it Rassilon and make it. So there's nothing wrong with that. I would even accept that Rassilon was a woman, there was a girl, and then grew up and then became introduced into Time Lord Society, um, and was the founder of Time Lord Society. I have no problems with that because we're still talking about a life form that we know of that existed on Gallifrey 1 billion years before the Doctor. 1 billion years before. That's the time factor that we're talking about with Rassilon to the Doctor's era. So I have no problems with that. That's a long time to cover. You know, 1 billion years is impossible to grasp. It's not feasible for a human mind to grasp anything that huge as a time scale. We have trouble separating cavemen from the dinosaurs, and there's only 64 million years there, and you know, some people still think that they were around at the same time. So go 1 billion years is an impossible amount of time to grasp. So having the Timeless Child be Rassilon to me is not an issue. In fact, it would make more sense to me to, at least if you're going to have the Timeless Child in there, but not the Master. Jesus H, what are you doing?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Making it Rassilon would be a nice way to undo the utter cock up that was the end of the last series.
I mean, there is a back door in that plot whereby there's a little bit of information missing from the Matrix. So there is that. Are they going to do that before Chibnall's exit? Probably, but it's going to seem like backpedaling. I don't think Chibnall's writing is clever enough to get. I don't like having to go with the guy because again we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. But even then, the writing doesn't seem clever enough to be convincing. Even when it's not anything political or anything like that. But getting on to with Dewan's Master, where would you take it? If I said to you, Chris, we're going to be in charge of Doctor Who. Our first story is going to be the Master. We've got to deal with Sacha Dhawan. We've got him as the Master now. What would you like to see, or what would you do if you were given the reins of this character and go, right, then you can make whatever Master story you want? Go.
Well, for a start, I would remove all the laughing and the gurning and the tantruming stuff. I would make him as he was on Spyfall, but I'd write him with more intelligence, and I'd make him go back to I want to rule the universe, and I'll kill anyone that gets in the way. I would reset him back to where he should be.
Yeah.
Because I don't see what else you could do with it now. They've gone round the houses with John Sim and Michelle Gomez. I would reset it, and I wouldn't even recast Sacha Dhawan. I think he's a fine actor, but I would give him something better to work with.
Give him his balls
something
back.
More, yeah, something more menacing. I'd make him more menacing. I'd make him someone to be worried about crossing, worried about talking to. Yeah, I would. I'd give him, well, not so much give him his ball. Yeah, I'd give him his ball.
I mean,
back.
come on. He's there's this little shouty. He's like a Yorkshire Terrier. I mean, that's how he comes across. His Master. No, again, it's not Sacha Dhawan's fault. It's how they're making him convey to the audience. And you don't need him to be a large person to display menace. You need, because I mean, to me, Vaughn from the Invasion in the Second Doctor era, he wasn't a big guy, but he was cold. you know, when the Doctor and Jamie go into International Electromatic, and they're in Vaughn's office, like he's in control, man. He is relaxed. He is absolutely just stone faced and telling them like, yeah, you can do whatever you like, but you can't do nothing about it because I've got you over a barrel here, and there's nothing you can do. And I don't ever feel that from Dewan's master. I never feel that. I feel like I wish there was that moment of him just being able to go, I got you beat. You may as well put your guns down because even shooting me won't change the fact because I'm ahead of the game. I'm ahead of the curve, and that's missing from Dewan's master. Again, it goes back to the whole thing of if you start shouting and screaming, I think you've lost the argument. And yeah, he's just a raving lunatic, isn't he?
Well, I do wonder if when they were writing for that master for those last two episodes, I do wonder if they went back and they looked at the bits of what John Sim did, but just the bits where he really had the drums, where he was starting to bang his fingers on the table and really start losing the plot. And I think that's where they've looked, and that's what's happened.
Again, if you look at Dewan's performances as Davos in Iron Fist, it's a very different. It's a very different presence. It's a very different villain, and it's one that's he's cold. He's a cold villain in that. So he's actually much better as the Master in Iron Fist than he is in Doctor Who. I mean, if I was taking control of the Master and I was going to give the Master anything, right now, what I would do is I would give him Yaz as a companion. I would have that story happen whereby Yaz leaves the Doctor and joins the Master. Because the Master doesn't really have a companion. And to have that happen, I have to have the Doctor be betrayed by a friend, one that we are told has been part of her fam. I would actually, I think that would work for me, and I would have it again. We've talked about this pretty much at the start, whereby the Doctor keeps lying, and the Master doesn't really lie. The Master's devious and mischievous, but really and truly, that the Master's genuinely more honest than the Doctor. And I think that would actually be the convincing turning point for Yaz, is the fact that, there should be that moment of the Master going, see, I told you the Doctor was lying. I told you. Look, I'm not a nice person, I'll admit that, but I'm telling you the truth. And then you just have that moment of Yaz just looking at the Doctor going, I can't travel with you. I can't, I don't want to travel with him, but I can't travel with you. And have that moment whereby the Master's like, oh, I've got you beat, Doc. I've turned one of your friends against you, and I didn't take anything than your own behaviour to do it. And that to me would be like a good blow and a good victory for the Master as well, because the Master needs victories. The Master needs to have victories to be a threat, and we've talked about that before as well, about how characters in Doctor Who tend not to get wins where the Doctor's concerned, and they really should. Just so you can got a threatening arc to the series and a threatening villain, something that needs, because the Daleks are a joke now. The Daleks couldn't win at the bloody one-man game of Snakes and Ladders. So, that's the situation. So if I was in charge of Doctor Who right now, I would hand them Yaz as a companion, because I think that the Master could use a companion, and it would be a good forwarding story to have. If you were going to have the Master in a series as a concurrent villain, I think that would be an interesting idea, an interesting plot to play with. And I'd want the Master to actually. I tell you what I would do. I would actually have the Master in charge of some sort of galactic federation, right? And have the Doctor show up and be like, well, you're in charge of this place. How long have you been in charge? And be like, oh, I've been in charge of this place for like 100 years. And have it be like one of the most utopian societies, because everybody's dead scared of breaking the law, breaking the rules. I mean, you could again, you can look at sort of things like North Korea as an example, whereby everything's presented as being like Pyongyang, where everything's presented as being pristine and perfect, and it's a society where everybody's happy, and it's a utopian society. But there's stuff happening behind the scenes. That's a bit more Kim Jong Un. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what I would do with the Master. I think that's what I would hand the Master is, and you could make him an allegory for North Korea if you wanted to, or any sort of dictatorship. I mean, just look at what's happened now in Afghanistan. In Kabul with the Taliban, you could definitely tell those sorts of stories, and using the Master as that sort of lightning rod for it. And those are stories that you can absolutely do with that character.
Well, as long as they made the stories allegorical and not just holding up big signs pointing to Afghanistan on a map saying, actually, we're talking about that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
this is what happens if people get it wrong. Yeah. No. But I think I mean, again, I think North Korea is probably a better example of what I would do. Again, it's a place that presents itself as as a utopian society, and then behind the scenes, everybody knows that actually there's a lot of starving people here. There's a lot of people being put to death. There's a lot of people being imprisoned and oppressed. But that sort of thing's been swept from public view, as it were. And that's what I would do with the Master. I'd give him something like that, just so that But you've got to make positive arguments, like whereby the people in this society, look, they're happy. They're not hungry. They're not starving. They're not, and have these positive things that this is what the Master's achieved, because it has to be an achievement. It has to be, look, here's something I have created, and here it is. But again, that would be something that also as well, something that you can imagine. The Doctor would have to dig down deep to kind of break, particularly if the Master's turned he has. That would be phenomenal, I think.
I can't argue with it, mate. That would be superb.
I think that's one thing I would definitely do with Dewan's Master. How would I end that? He'd have to regenerate. That's the way out. It'd have to be. I'm gonna make it a bit of irony. They're gonna be on a platform. They're gonna be fighting, and the Master falls from a tower. And that's how I end the Master in that run, and that's exactly how he's gonna regenerate. He falls from a tower.
That works.
And that's his way out. I think that's the only way out. I don't really know if you've got any more to add, Chris.
Not really. I'm not going to top the story like that.
Well, I mean, it's spitballing ideas, isn't it? That's the thing. Obviously, we're not going to talk about our favourites because it's pointless. It's Roger Delgado. It's pointless in going any further than that. Yeah. I think that we've talked about all the Masters throughout. People that could play the Master, we haven't mentioned really, but we would like. I mean, obviously, my favourite would obviously be Charles Dance.
Yep, same here. I'd like Charles Dance as well.
David Warner would have been good, but obviously, like people would. He's now been in Doctor Who anyway in Cold War. But he would have been great as the Master as well. I think, didn't David Warner play one in... No, then. That's interesting. Did David Warner ever play the Master? In like an audio book or... Because I'm sure, like, obviously people would have known David Warner from things like Tron and obviously Star Trek 5, Star Trek 6. Always brilliant as a villain. So yeah, Doctor Who, yeah, Cold War. Yes, he was Lord Aslock in Dreamland.
Oh.
There we are. So he has previous with Doctor Who. He was in Men in Black the series. Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. And obviously, oh yes, he was Ra's al Ghul in Batman the Animated Series and Batman the Future. Yeah, he was Ra's al Ghul in the Demon Reborn in Superman the Animated Series. And the Spider-Man series, he was Herbert Landon. Such a great villain actor, though. Such a good villain.
So I was trying to find my cast list that we done because I can't remember who I'd cast as the Master now. I know Terence Stamp was the Ultimate Master.
But again, see, David Warner's
as he was 40 years ago.
Again, like David Warner's like 80 now, I believe. Just turned 80. Still acting. I think he would have been great. And again, yeah, Charles Dance. Oh my word.
Jason Isaacs was the one I picked for a realistic master. I think he'd do well with a goatee.
Yeah, and again, if you're talking about younger actors as well, but that's fantasy casting. That's a video that we absolutely loved and totally lost. I say we because I'm not taking all the responsibility, even though it was my
even though it was completely your fault.
Totally. Anyway, I think we've covered the Master in and out. I think that we've talked about him enough, and I think we've covered pretty much anything. Anything you want to add to the Master, or anything that you want to add in general to Doctor Who?
Well, as far as the Master, regardless of how they write the Master, how they present him, who plays him, male, female, gay, straight, black, white, doesn't matter. But he should always be the Moriarty to the Doctor Sherlock Holmes.
Yes.
Always.
Absolutely. And for my money as well, he should always be cleverer than the Doctor. Because I've always seen the Master as the person that creates these intricate plans, and the Doctor just comes in with a bucket of water and just pours it all over it and just beats it with a hammer. Cillian Murphy is the Master. Ooh, I like Cillian Murphy, but I think I could beat that with Jude Law. I think Jude Law as the Master would be a better pick. Though I do like Cillian Murphy. I do. But yeah, I think I'd have Jude Law. I think he can do Cold Heartless. Not that Cillian Murphy can't. It's just I don't normally show that much respect for Jude Law, to be honest with you. But I think he's a much better actor than they've ever given him credit for. I think he's absolutely brilliant as Dr. Watson in the Sherlock movies. I think that's probably my big key on point actually for him more than anything else. It's weird. There's certain actors I never really have that great a deal of respect for. And then there's that one movie that I see them in and go, oh, I was wrong about this person all along. It does happen. I don't know. I mean, Brad Pitt. It's a huge name, but I mean, he's done independent stuff before now. So Brad Pitt is a guy that can nail the Master.
Well, I mean, if he's got a goatee beard on, I mean, just imagine Leonardo DiCaprio and he's doing that laughing face that's on all the memes.
Well, it's just, I mean, you have a look at him in Django Unchained. I mean, yeah, there's plenty of good. I mean, it's not when you mentioned Leonardo DiCaprio there. I mean, he is very, very influenced by British film. He's admitted it himself that he's very much a British indie film fan. So he's very much up to speed on that sort of filmmaking and film acting performances, and it's been a great inspiration for him to in his acting career. So yeah, I can definitely see that. So yeah, who else might make a really, really, really good? I mean, any great actor would make a good master. Any great actor, but I mean, if you really wanted what to, if you really, really needed cold, and you really needed somebody that was going to be the master. I mean, it's a shame, but Alan Rickman would have. Oh, he would have killed it. Absolutely killed it.
Yeah.
Um, who else might have out of history? Who might have historically acting?
Historically, cool.
I mean, I think not to still confuse the Sherlock timelines and things like that as well, but I think Basil Rathbone might have had a good crack.
Well, he is the definitive Sherlock
Yeah,
Holmes.
yeah.
So, but
But
yeah,
I think that to be the antithesis of that, I think you would have definitely had a good crack at that.
I'll be honest with you.
Peter Cushing.
I think Brent Spiner.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
totally.
look at the way he played Law in TNG. I mean, he can do cold.
Oh yes, yes, and clever, cold and clever.
Yeah.
And that's what you need. You need somebody that can sell the intelligence. Um, any other actor you can think of that who does intelligent acting? I mean, Tom Baker's always wanted to play the master. That's for sure. That'd be an odd one though.
It would be an odd one, yeah.
But I mean, it's not unheard of that the Time Lords have used other people's faces before now. Um,
That one might be a stretch too far for me, though.
anyway, yeah, I'm gonna end the stream now. Hope you've had a good night, and
Yeah, it's been
yeah,
great.
it's been a different change of pace. Next week we will be doing the Green Death though, and I am looking forward to it. It's a shame we can't do it tonight because it does go on for 6 episodes. So, um, but I am looking forward to it because the Green Death is one of those stories whereby um, it's 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 a good story, but it's executed really really well. There's some odd bits in it. It's ups and downs and like all classic Who, it's got its positives and its negatives. It's got some really awesome lighting in it sometimes. Like there are shots in it that's like, oh that's good now, that's really good. And it's got some effect shots, great model work in it, bad
It's
model
got
work in it.
some CSO maggots, if I remember rightly.
It's got no the CSO work does in Green Death. The CSO work does do some confusing stuff because there's some really good stuff whereby you can go, oh right, I get why they've done that, and there's other bits whereby you go in, I don't know why they did that. So it's kind of all over the place. Again, good acting performances in it for the most part. Um, Again, we know we get the addition of Stuart Llewellyn Bevan in it as Professor Jones, and who returns to the role. This is something for us to talk about next week, but he plays the character Clifford Jones, I mean, um, and actually returned to the role last year. And he was actually, again, this is something else to talk about next week. But at the time when they were making the Green Death, he was actually engaged to Katie Manning. So that's kind of how we got the role. But it's on for next week. Definitely, we shall sit down. We shall watch the Green Death, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be I think it's a good episode. I've got to be honest with you. This it's got a bit of an odd notion behind it, in that why they assumed maggots would be down in a mine shaft 600 yards underground. I don't know, but yeah, it's a good story, and I think it's the first time we get a proper emotional outing for a companion. I think it's the when and not to spoil things for you, but when Joe Grant says, "No, it's okay, Doc," I think it's actually a moment of ah, he's hurt by that. I mean, he knew it was coming, but he's not okay with it. um, So yeah, so there's a lot to get into next week with the Green Death. Hope you've had a good night.
I have. I have indeed.
Hope you've had a good night in the chat as well, Lakosa. And yes, if you do decide to do the Star Wars video, I am definitely up for it. Absolutely. Just give me a bell and I will be on. Just give us a advance warning. And yeah, we shall see you next week for the Green Death. Take care.
See you later.